Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a massive stack of sources, in this case, the sprawling and, well, brilliant final completed novel by Charles Dickens, our mutual friend.
That's right. We are wading into the muddy, mysterious currents of the River Thames and the equally murky world of Victorian finance.
It's really Dickens' ultimate examination of money, isn't it?
It is. It's a forensic deep dive into what happens when massive, totally unexpected wealth of fortune built literally out of London's refuse crashes headlong into this really rigid, class-obsessed society.
So our mission today is to pull out the surprising, almost modern nuggets of wisdom Dickens offers on identity, social class, and just the sheer corrupting power of vast property.
Right, we're going to look at the characters who inherit money, those who desperately pretend they have it.
And those who would rather die than touch charity.
It's a story about finding out who people truly are when they're under extreme pressure, whether that pressure comes from poverty or from a sudden, dizzying fortune.
Okay, let's start where all the trouble begins, the inheritance.
Yes. The foundation of the entire plot is old Mr. Harmon. He was a wealthy, eccentric miser who made his fortune managing the city's giant dust heaps.
Which were literally mountains of valuable urban trash. Amazing.
And upon his death, he leaves his vast fortune. We're talking well over 100,000 pounds, an astronomical sum to his estranged son, John Harmon.
But there's a catch.
Always a catch with Dickens, a condition imposed by the dead father. The son must marry a woman named Bella Wilfer, who he has never met.
But the money, it can't just land safely. Dickens immediately throws a major twist into the river.
A huge one. John Harmon, returning to London from abroad to claim his fortune and, his potential bride, is mistakenly identified as slain.
A body is found in the Thames by this river scavenger, Gaffer Hexam. It turns out to be someone else, a villain named Radfoot.
Oh, yeah.
But I bet the papers are all saying Harmon is dead.
And this is where the plot mechanism just kicks into high gear. With John Harmon presumed dead, the will dictates that the residuary legatee inherits everything.
And that would be Nicodemus Boffin, the famously good-natured, uneducated golden dustman, and his wife, Henrietta.
And just like that, they become instantly massively wealthy.
What's fascinating about Boffin, though, is how he reacts. He's so, wholesome and enthusiastic about it all at first.
He is. He sees the money not as something to hoard, but as a chance for self-improvement. He declares he wants to find pleasure in print, in books and literature, and immediately hires a literary man to read to him.
Which brings us to the first major revelation about identity. John Harmon is not dead.
Not at all. He's back in London, observing everyone in secret, and he's operating under the alias of Mr. John Rokesmith.
And he takes the job as the Boffin's new secretary.
It's such a bold narrative move. And Dickens, he actually knew his readers were sharp enough to figure this out. He confirms it in a postscript.
Right. He says he foresaw that readers would suppose that Mr. John Harmon was not slain and that Mr. John Rokesmith was he. It's a wonderful nod to his audience.
But the real insight here is why he keeps up the deception. He's using his own inheritance as a kind of social experiment.
He wants to test two things at once.
Exactly. First, he wants to see how his good friends, the Boffins, will handle the massive property, how the money will change them.
And second, and maybe more importantly, he needs to gauge the true character of Bella Wilfer.
Right. She'd been raised to believe her whole value was tied to this inheritance. The narrator says she was conditioned by his father's will to be mercenary.
So his alias lets him see her truly. To find out if she's marrying for love or just for the money. He has to hide his identity to expose her true self.
And this newly distributed wealth, whether it's Boffin's genuine fortune or Harmon's secret, it gives Dickens the perfect gleaming target for social satire, the world of new money.
So let's pivot to the Veneerings. They are new money personified, and the sources tell us everything about their life is in a state of high varnish and polish.
Yes, they're desperately trying to prove they belong in high society, but the facade is, well, it's fragile.
And this is the brilliant observational detail Dickens gives us. He says their surface literally, quote, smelt a little too much of the workshop and was a trifle sticky.
It hasn't fully dried yet. It's perfect. They bought their way in, and now they have to basically manufacture their own social circle.
And they do this by starting with Quemlow, who's the first cousin to a lord. Quemlow himself is this innocent, modest man.
He's described as representing the dining table in its normal state.
But the Veneerings use him like a piece of furniture. They're constantly putting leaves in him. You have to understand what that means, right?
It's about expanding a dining table for more guests. Quemlow is the one single, genuine piece of aristocracy they have, and they use his presence to legitimize everyone else they invite.
So while they're hosting these opulent, totally forced dinners, you have the chilling figure of their butler, the analytical chemist.
He just looks, silently judging the whole charade. He seems to be offering a drink, but his presence is a critique. It's like he's saying, "Chablis, sir. You wouldn't if you knew what it's made of."
This whole idea of avoiding unpleasant reality, it really culminates in Mr. Podsnap.
Oh, Podsnap. He's the grandest embodiment of avoidance. He has a physical, literal mechanism for dealing with any truth he finds disagreeable.
He just puts it behind him with this physical flourish of his arm, sweeping the inconvenient fact out of existence.
It's the ultimate statement about manufacturing your own reality. The most famous instance is, oh, well, it's truly shocking. A meek man mentions that people are dying of starvation in the streets of London.
And Podsnap's reply is just absolute certainty.
I don't believe it. And he literally dismisses the entire fact right behind him with this theatrical sweep of his arm. If he can't see it, it doesn't exist.
And this veneer of wealth, it just leads to internal rot, like with Alfred and Sophronia Lamley.
Right. They marry entirely on false pretenses of wealth, only to immediately confess to each other after the vows that they're both broke.
And their love story just instantly pivots to this desperate joint business venture of scheming and blackmail, all just to fix their finances.
Dickens is showing us that a society built on polish and surface inevitably requires outright crime to maintain itself.
So if the veneerings and Podsnaps show the moral decay of having money, Dickens then uses the next section to sharply critique the terrible cost of lacking it, especially under the brutal Victorian poor laws.
This is where we meet Mrs. Betty Higden. She's a fish of staggering, almost tragic independence.
A working woman, fiercely devoted to ensuring her great-grandchild, Johnny, never ever falls into the hands of the parish or the workhouse. She sees it as a fate worse than death.
Yes, she expresses this absolute terror of the workhouse, the union money. She says she hopes to get up from her bed and run and hide herself and swoon to death in a hole sooner than fall into the hands of those cruel jacks.
That terror is Dickens' indictment of the whole system. The poor law was designed to be so punitive that people would rather die than accept its aid.
It strips away all dignity. And even though the Boffins, in their goodness, they try to intervene and adopt Johnny, Betty's fierce independence just sees any institutional help as a shame and a disgrace.
And tragically, Johnny's fate is sealed. When he's taken to the children's hospital, the doctor tells Rokesmith, too late.
And Betty herself, always wandering, always in fear of being discovered by parish officials, eventually runs away and dies alone in the road.
It's a devastating scene, but it gives her the one victory she craved. She rests free to the last from that cruelty and disgrace.
She died outside the system that wanted to control her.
And yet, amidst all this profound poverty, Dickens places the purest example of goodness in the whole book. Sloppy.
Sloppy. He's described as an ungainly piece of honesty who works the mangle. He's utterly devoted to Betty Higden, showing this genuine, selfless care.
That contrast is so important. Dickens is demonstrating that sincerity and true moral worth are found far, far away from the gilded drawing rooms.
And are often preserved precisely because they lack the corrupting influence of the Harmon inheritance.
Now let's get back to the fortune itself, because the schemers are circling.
Yes, the internal menace is Silas Wegg, the literary man with the wooden leg that Boffin hired.
He teams up with a strange, delightful character, Mr. Venus, the taxidermist and anatomist,
in a brazen blackmail plot. Their whole conspiracy centers on a supposed later will that Wegg found inside a discarded item.
Right, inside a Dutch bottle, a specific kind of glass item often pulled from the Thames muck, which ties it all back to the world of scavengers and refuse where the fortune came from.
And this alleged will claims the Harmon fortune actually reverts to the crown, leaving the Boffins with just their original, much smaller legacy.
And here is where John Harmon's experiment with Bella Wilfer requires the Boffins to undergo this painful public transformation.
To test the loyalty of everyone around them, especially Harmon, who is Rokesmith, and Bella Mr. Boffin appears to suddenly just succumb to greed.
He becomes the archetypal miser. He seems to grow too fond of money. He yells at Rokesmith, treats him horribly, and is cruel to Bella.
But this simulation of avarice is, of course, entirely a plan cooked up with his wife and the secret John Harmon.
It's a brilliant but ethically questionable strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's harsh to put the Boffins, who are genuinely good people, through the torment of pretending to be terrible.
Absolutely. They subject themselves to this public masquerade of greed solely to create a test chamber for Bella and to draw out the blackmailers like Weg.
Yeah.
It shows the extreme measures you need to protect yourself from the poison of wealth.
Speaking of poison, we can't overlook the other great deception in the book, which reveals a different kind of societal corruption. Fascination Fledgeby.
Fledgeby. He operates a cruel, predatory lending business, Pubsy & Co., but he hides his identity completely.
He uses this kind, gentle Jewish old man, Rhea, as the public, harsh face of the business.
So Rhea is forced to carry out Fledgeby's cruel collections, making everyone believe that he's the merciless financier, and Rhea's internal conflict is just heartbreaking.
He realizes his complicity forces him to do dishonor to my ancient faith and race. This is Dickens directly confronting systemic prejudice.
Exactly. Rhea recognizes that society doesn't see him as an individual forced into a bad position. He says if one Christian does something bad, they say, this is a bad Christian.
But when they see Rhea being cruel, they take the worst of us as samples of the best, and they say, all Jews are alike.
It's a profound moment, showing how structural injustice forces the marginalized to embody the very stereotypes used against them.
Our journey ends with the dramatic culmination of violence, love, and redemption, all centered on the River family. Lizzie Hexam, Gaffer's daughter.
She's pursued by two very different men. The desperate schoolmaster, Bradley Headstone, and the idle, aristocratic lawyer, Eugene Rayburn.
Headstone is just consumed by this violent, ungovernable passion for Lizzie. It ruins him. He tells her she is the ruin of him and says, you draw me to fire, you draw me to water. It's obsessive.
And terrifying. Rayburn, on the other hand, starts his pursuit purely out of boredom and aristocratic indifference, but he slowly develops genuine, deep feelings for Lizzie.
And this rivalry just boils over.
The passion erupts into pure, savage violence. Headstone, in a fit of jealousy, ambushes Eugene near the river and leaves him brutally beaten and half-drowned, left for dead.
But Lizzie, relying on her inherent strength and her old, bold life and habit on the river, she rushes to the scene. She physically pulls Eugene from the water
and binds his fearful wounds upon him, tearing strips from her own dress to stop the bleeding. She saves his life through sheer competence.
And while Eugene is recovering, Bella Wilfer completes her own transformation.
Right. She witnesses Mr. Boffin's manufactured greed and chooses love over luxury, having once been pretty mercenary.
She stands up to Boffin's cruelty, not knowing it was fake, and marries Rokesmith when he has no money and no clients and no expectations. She chose the man.
Not the fortune. Their modest wedding is this quiet triumph for true affection. Takes place at Greenwich Church, attended by basically no one.
Just an unknown individual who dropped in and half a pensioner.
And this act of sincerity is the climax of Harmon's entire elaborate plan. He only reveals his true identity and wealth after Bella has passed the test. He had to be absolutely certain.
Boffin himself explains the necessity of it all to everyone afterward. He says Harmon wanted to wait to triumph beyond what we ever thought possible and to show her to them better than even we ever supposed.
And he says, she shall see me under suspicion of having murdered myself, and you shall see how trusting and how true she'll be.
It is the ultimate victory for sincerity over polish. And it even forces a change in the superficial social hierarchy.
We return to Mr. Twemlow, the man who was the human dining table for the Veneerings, to deliver the final judgment of society.
When the arrogant, dismissive Mr. Podsnap tries to condemn Eugene's marriage to the low-born Lizzie, Twemlow, the quiet man of lineage, finally speaks up.
And he asserts that Eugene's marriage was born of gratitude, of respect, of admiration, and affection. Twemlow, who spent the whole book silent, finally finds his voice to defend genuine feeling against superficial judgment.
A perfect end to the social satire. We started this deep dive with a massive, complicated inheritance that threatened to corrupt everyone it touched. The schemers were routed, the identities revealed.
And the central insight seems to be that true character is revealed only under pressure, whether that pressure is extreme wealth or extreme poverty.
But here's the final provocative thought, building on Harmon's scheme. To test Bella's true character, John Harmon had to pretend to be a penniless clerk, and the Boffins had to pretend to be cruel misers.
So the question is deception in certain extreme circumstances sometimes a necessary tool to successfully reveal a genuine and absolute truth?
We'll leave you to mull over that thought. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.